Hey, Science 20s. Our lesson today is on mole ratios. It's actually a fairly short lesson, but it is our first math lesson. So please pause the video if you don't have a calculator already. I would recommend pausing the video a lot, copying the notes, leaving the blank, a big, like 8 lines blank, copying the next question, leaving 8 lines blank, copying the next question, leaving 8 lines blank, so that you can watch this video the second time by just answering the questions with me as we go along. Remember, the nice thing about videos is you can go back, pause, backtrack, go forward, listen to this, watch this as many times as you need to. Those of us going ahead and wanting to take Science 30, this is a very important lesson for Science 30 as well. So we're going to go ahead one slide. Now, the biggest question I get after yesterday's lesson on balancing chemical reactions is, what is the point of those balancing numbers? What do those coefficients actually mean? Well, those coefficients actually are very, very important. Those coefficients, these numbers out in front, actually let us know how many moles of that substance, that entity that we actually have. So it's not that we have a 2 here, it's that we have 2 moles of hydrogen gas. We have 1 mole of oxygen gas, and that allows us to make 2 moles of liquid water. Remember, we don't put the ones in, but there's still a 1 there. There's 1 mole of oxygen in that equation. Now, the weird thing about figuring out moles is that there's no piece of equipment we can go into the lab to use to measure moles. This is weird because if we think about it, we use a thermometer for temperature, a barometer for pressure, we use an electronic balance for mass, we might use a grad cylinder for volume. There is no equipment we use to measure moles, but we use moles all the time. We have to end up doing this conversion between moles and mass all the time. And that's going to come up in a future lesson. For right now, I just want to play around with mole ratios so we're more comfortable when we get to that later on. So here's going to be the formula that we're going to use. Now, the thing about formulas is, in Science 20, this formula is in your data booklet. It is on page 10 of your data booklet. Now, I want you to look this up because there's 2 formulas sitting next to each other. I will always use this one. I like this one better than the other one. Now, when you look at it, it's a little confusing. So first off, I want to talk about what the N's mean, because if we take a look, there's 2 N's here. N stands for number of moles. The coefficients, those are our balancing numbers from balancing chemical reactions. So we're going to pull a number out of the balanced chemical reaction. The G's are what they give us in the question. So a coefficient is a balancing number from the equation. Here is the number of moles given to us. It'll be a math number in the equation, 5 moles, 3.2 moles, something like that. R is what we're trying to find. That is what we are trying to locate. That is what we're trying to calculate. That is our required substance. I would love to know what that number is. Now, what I would like to do is I'd like to do the first example with you. If you haven't done so already, pause the video, copy everything on the screen, and then start the video again when you're ready for me to talk through the question. Okay, example number 1. When aluminum is exposed to air, the metal reacts with oxygen in the air to form aluminum oxide. Determine the number of moles of oxygen required. So that is my job. And when I see what I'm trying to find in a question, I love to underline it. So we are trying to find the number of moles of oxygen, which means when I come here underneath oxygen, and we're going to line everything up and be very precise in this, I'm trying to find the number of moles, which means this is the one I would like to find. That is my required value, okay? And I'm going to react it with 6.25 moles of aluminum. So underneath aluminum, they told me a mole value. They're giving it to me, so it's G, and it told me 6.25 moles. 6.25 moles, okay? So first thing I would do is line up underneath the equation What is the moles that you know that are given to you? What are the moles that you are trying to find? Line them up. Okay. Now, here's how you're going to get marks. Your first mark is you have to open up your data booklet and you have to copy as you see it this formula for 1 mark. Every single time we use a formula in this class, you get a mark for copying it out of your data booklet. Please don't be lazy and not copy it. I'm going to be consistent and I'm going to dock you that mark every time unless you write it down. I want it written exactly right. Okay. Secondly, with that, your second mark is for us to actually use that formula. So we're going to find the moles required, and our moles required is for oxygen. So let's update this and go for oxygen. So we're going to find the moles of oxygen. That's what we're trying to find. So write down the number that you know already, the given number using the formula. So this would be 6.25 moles. Now, I like to think of this as a little game of leapfrog. I know it sounds weird, but it works. So write down the number that you were given, moles given, 6.25, and then we're going to multiply it by a coefficient and divide it by a coefficient. And here's the easiest way to do it. Writing down the number for what you were given, 6.25, we're going to do a game of leapfrog over to the moles of the unknown. So 3 moles. And once you multiply it by the unknown, the place where there's the question mark, the unknown, we're going to jump back to, hey, where did we just come from? 4 moles. So it's going to be 3/4. So to review, write down the number that they gave you in the question, 6.25, times by 3, unknown question mark, jump back, divide by 4, what they gave us. So 6.25 times 3 divided by 4. So what I would like us to do is get out your calculator, and you're going to type in 6.25 times 3, enter, divided by 4, enter. Now, you get a pretty long little number here. What I'm going to say is on this lesson today, let's write all of our numbers to 2 decimal places. So my calculator number is now going to be 4.69, and the unit is moles because remember, we're trying to find the moles of oxygen, so the unit is moles. So how do you get marks in Mr. Kemp's class? 1 mark is for the formula. Second mark is for the substitution with the unit. You have to show this step. And then the third mark is for the answer with units. So if I was to mark this question would be out of 3 marks. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. What I would like to do is go to the next question. Again, if you have to, pause the video, copy everything down. This is what I would do this time. This time, before you watch me do it, why don't you read the question, underline what you're trying to find, and write underneath your balanced chemical reaction what they gave us and what we're trying to locate. So the question says, determine how many moles of aluminum oxide. So get my pen. So here's my aluminum oxide. I'm going to find this. This is my required. So I need to know the answer to that. If I read the question, it says, if you react 6.25 moles of aluminum. So this is my moles given to me. And I'm going to be neat and organized. I'm written underneath the aluminum. I'm written underneath the aluminum oxide. I want to make sure I'm making a point to take extra seconds to get everything lined up. Now you'll notice this is the same question as the previous page. However, I'm asking us to find the moles of something different. On the last question, we were given the moles of aluminum and you had to find the moles of oxygen. In this question, we're given the moles of aluminum and you have to find the moles of aluminum oxide. 2 different questions. Okay, so for 1 mark, you copied this formula, and so you get 1 mark for that, right out of your data booklet. The second mark is we're going to find the moles of Al2O 0.03. This is what I'm trying to find, aluminum oxide. So remember our little game of leapfrog. Write down the number they gave you in the question. 6.25 moles. And after we write down this number, we're going to multiply by the unknown. Where my question mark is, right here. Multiply by 2. And from here, we're going to then jump back to where we came from, what they gave us, divide by 4. So write down the number they gave us in the question, 6.25 moles, times 2, back again, divide by 4. And again, we're going to need our calculator. 6.25 times 2, enter, divided by 4, enter. And my answer is, again, in 2 decimal places, because that's what I've asked for, 3.13 moles. Yes, you need to attach the units. So, looking at this work, 1 mark for copying the formula, 1 mark for substituting in with a unit, and another mark for using my calculator correctly, putting it into 2 decimal places because that's what I asked for, and of course the unit. Okay, I'm going to clear this, and there's 1 left to do. Here's what I would like you to do. I want you now to pause the video and do the whole question yourself, and then just watch the end of this video to check your work. Pause now. Okay, I'm going to do this question. Determine we're going to find the amount of silver. So here's silver, Ag. I'm trying to find that. So that is what is required. They told me in the question, we have 0.876 moles of silver sulfide. So this is the moles given to me, 0.876 moles. So again, 1 mark, I'm going to copy the formula off of my data booklet. We're now going to find the moles of silver because that's what I want to find. So we start by writing down the number that we already know, 0.876 moles. And remember, from here, we're going to play a little game of leapfrog. Multiply it by 4, divide it by 2. So write down your number, unknown 4 over known 2. Keep things lined up. So we're going to use our calculator and type in 0.876 times 4, enter, divided by 2, enter. And my answer is, to 2 decimal places, 1.75 moles. Formula 1 mark, substitution 1 mark with units. Answer 1 mark with units and in 2 decimal places. This question would also be out of 3. Hope that this made the lesson easier. Hope you can understand this. Good luck on your homework.